With all this quarantining madness going on because of COVID-19, my family and I have fled New York State to our Massachusetts lake house to avoid contact with other people. The lake, which I will not name for safety reasons, has a bunch of houses surrounding it, and in the summer months it's full of boats and people barbecuing and drinking. But right now in late March when I'm writing this, it's kind of a ghost town here, and it's weird seeing it like this here. Anyway, I wouldn't be here writing this if something didn't go wrong, right? My younger brothers, we'll call Steve and Glenn, were out on the deck overlooking the lake with me. We were setting up the table for a game of beer pong, which we invited our dad to play with us so the teams would be even. The sky had reached that point after sunset where most of the sky was dark, but there was still that hint of orange on the horizon. The lake was calm and quiet, not a single boat, and all the neighboring houses seemed to be vacant. We're truly the only ones around still. Our deck has a fire pit, so we lit that for extra light as well as heat because it was chilly. The four of us were playing a game of beer pong, when in the middle of it, Glenn grabbed his phone and lowered the music to his portable speaker. He and Steve turned around to look over the deck to the grass below. My dad and I went over to see what they were looking at. Glenn said he heard something below us, and he could see someone walk under the deck. The deck doesn't have a stairway leading down. You have to go inside and downstairs to get down there. So my dad and I went downstairs and out the back door under the deck. There was nobody there. My dad called out a bunch of times to confirm this, and we went back upstairs. The thing is, Steve swore by it as well that he also heard someone speaking from under the deck. Regardless, we cut the game of beer pong short and went inside, making sure to lock the door. My mom and dad were up in their loft bedroom, while I was in the living room playing PlayStation. That's when it started. Loud, aggressive bangs on the sliding door. Accompanied with the bangs was a man's shrieks and screams. Sounded like he was screaming for help. The curtain to the door was shut, so I couldn't see who it was, but apparently everyone in the house heard it, because my brothers and parents came rushing to the living room. My dad yanked the curtain open to find himself face to face with some red-in-the-face man banging his fist on the glass, begging to be let in. He was claiming he was hurt and needed help. My dad asked, "Where are you hurt?" He didn't answer that though. He just kept repeating, "Let me in, I'm hurt." My dad then yelled to get out of here before we'd call the cops. He yanked the blinds shut and told us all to shut and lock our windows if they were open. We all stayed in the living room together for a couple hours, just to be safe. We had a movie on in the background as we talked, but eventually, with no other uninvited visitors outside, we all split off into our respective rooms for the night. I was browsing YouTube videos in my bed when it happened. The crash of shattering glass so loud it made me jump out of my bed. My heart instantly started racing. I didn't know if I was the only one who heard it because I didn't hear my parents or brothers running out of their rooms. I picked up the phone and called my dad's cell. He picked up and whispered he heard it too, and to stay in my room and lock the door. I reminded him my door didn't have a lock. Of course, my room, while the biggest of my brothers, was the one room that didn't have a lock. He told me to hide in the closet and call my brothers while he called the cops. I heard footsteps outside my room in the living room area. I tiptoed to my closet and did my best to quietly open and close the door, but the damn hinges just had to squeak. I sat behind a big plastic bag and texted my brothers, who also heard the noise and each locked their doors. It was the most tense moment of my life in that closet. The bedroom door opened, and I could see through the strips in the closet door someone walk to my bed and sit at the edge of it. He then took off one of his shoes and started shaking it, as if to get something out of his shoe. He put his shoe back on, then his head actually turned to look at the closet door. I felt as though he was looking at me. There was just this silence for the longest time, until he finally spoke, saying, "I know you're in there. I'm sure your family already called the cops. I'm not sure what my next course of action should be." At that moment, I had to decide whether to stay in there or make a break for the door, and I chose the second option. I burst through the closet door screaming as some kind of adrenaline boost. I made it to the door, expecting him to lunge for me and grab me, but he didn't. I ran up to my parents' loft and banged on the door. My dad opened it and let me in. I waited with them until the cops entered through the freshly broken back door. Then we left the room to meet them. The man who was sitting on my bed was no longer in the house. We checked every closet, under every bed, every little crevice of the house. The cops recommended we tape a bunch of garbage bags over the door and shut the curtain, and also that we stay awake for the night. My dad stayed in the living room the whole night, and first thing in the morning he ran to Home Depot to buy a glass pane to fix the door. We're still actively quarantining in this house a week later. I'll send updates if the man returns.